Hey, welcome. It's so great to hear you, receive you. I'm not sure what we are right now, but it is amazing to be in this plane with you right now. I couldn't have imagined a more beautiful connection even if I tried. It's amazing. Okay, let's go ahead and dive in. We are going to ground ourselves in our greatness first. My great thing from this weekend, my daughter had made me a sign. Gosh, not that long ago, probably about 3 weeks ago, I would say. And it said, she slipped it under the door when I was working, and it said, "Mom, you made it." And I remember getting that and being like, oh, laughing and kind of rolling my eyes, like, oh, how cute. What a cute gesture. Oh my gosh. How wonderful that she thinks that I've made it when I most certainly have not. And, I kind of hate it. Oh my gosh, she's so cute, but seriously, I have made nothing at all. As if the entire advancement of who I've become, of the work that we've done, of the inner work, of the building back of a human being and the resistance and all of the things that we've done over the last 2 years were essentially nothing, right? Like I roll that note off like it doesn't even have any relevance at all. I have not made it, is what I'm thinking to myself as I read this note and laugh. And on Saturday, she makes me even better. You made it note. Slips it under my door, and I open it, and this time, even though it's only 3 weeks later, I fully accept that message. Like I received that. I have made it. Holy crap. Like when I really break down and think about the mental advancement of this work, and it can seem like I think we get really caught up in the material advancement of work that we're doing. But when you're working with self and the advancement of your own personal space and your own personal thought, the material oftentimes follows that work, but that has to lead, right? And I think about this a lot. I knew that I wanted to start to do this self-work because I had this realization that any success, anything that comes after this work isn't going to hit right if I'm not already those things, right? So I don't know, there's this saying, money will only make you more of what you already are, right? And so if you are happy, or look at people who win lotteries, who win a ton of money, are they ever happy? No, right? Because they were miserable before the money, and the money only made them more of what they already were. And so for me, it was about focusing on myself, right? And finding a way to love myself as I am right now, and not only love myself as someone I wish I was in the future, right? Like if I can't love myself here, then it's likely that I won't love myself later just because I have more time and just because I have more money. Like this has to come before all of that. Understanding how to love yourself, understanding how to love your situation. Like I was sitting this weekend and I was thinking, if nothing changed, if we rode this life right here out forever, I would be happy. And I know that I was not in that place in prior life before Maybe we'll call it BP before podcast. um, like I definitely could not have said that. And that's why I was fighting so hard to figure out what it was going to be. And it isn't really any one thing as much as it is just loving who you are and where you are. And we're going to dig into that a little bit more today. But I think for me, it was a huge step to fully accept that I have made it. This is what I was striving for, right? Like, this is everything that I wanted. I wanted to be happy without money, without bonuses, without all of those material things. Like, I wanted just happiness within my own being, regardless of material manifestations of that, regardless of money. Like, can I be happy right where I am? Yeah. And if that's the measure of success, if we had to put a measurement on it, then that sign is spot on. I have made it. I have made it in this work. I have made it in this pursuit of self. And from here, it really, really is like just almost relenting the power, relenting what has to happen, and just letting things flow. And the most amazing part of that is like the world aligns again with that vibration that you're putting out. And if your vibration isn't like, hurry up, right? And we live in a world of rush. And so I understand that it feels really weird to like slow down and let the children cross the road. And maybe, I don't know, just sit and eat toast in the morning and not have to watch the news and drink a coffee and check your Facebook and read a book and, right? Like, what if you just had singular, beautiful movements in your day? What does that look like? And it's very much the opposite of the world that we live in. And so, yes, it will make you feel a little bit odd. But as you move through and better understand who you want to be and how you really want to show up, like, do you want to rush through the entirety of your life to just get on the other side and realize that you could have slowed the down and enjoyed something once in a while? I don't know. What do you want? And that's what's so amazing about life. And for me, finally recognizing, accepting, and acknowledging that I had in fact made it in the work that I set out to do here was just such a beautiful kind of full acknowledgement moment. Like, I'm not laughing that sign off. Seriously. Like, just sitting in my house this weekend and just feeling so grateful for like the beauty of this life, grateful for an ice storm that was going to close me inside my house with my family, with my children, whereas that would have been something even last winter that would have just like spiraled me out of control and left me with this feeling of like needing to escape, needing to get out. And like, I still have those moments, but I don't need to be gone for an entire day right now. I don't need, and that's not to say that there won't be seasons, right? But like, it has felt really great to be able to just sit and to continue sitting. And this is like an acknowledgement and a knowing that we have made major advancements for where I was even last winter, for where I was even 3 weeks ago when I got my first "you made it" sign, right? And I think we have to just love ourselves a little bit better. I know. And acknowledge that sometimes growth and moves aren't going to look like what the normal world acknowledges them as, right? Like growth for me in this space just looks like me feeling like eternally happy, like so happy and blessed and in love with the life that I've created. That's success for me. That's what we started out in pursuit of. So go ahead, take time to recognize yourself for your own greatness. I am just saying it is possibly one of the first vibrations that you can lay down for yourself that might just change everything. Like that's a greatness vibration is a big vibration to put into the world. And if you take nothing but that from here, it may change your life. So, boom. Let's get in. So this weekend, I had put up these shelves a while ago. I didn't. My husband did. In my office because I wanted like a cool backdrop and I wanted to be able to put things up there that really meant a lot in my journey and had spoke to me. And when I put these up, and if you've never watched the video of this podcast, I do. Oh my gosh, welcome. We just sneezed. This is a real live podcast. I won't even edit that out. You're going to get to experience my sneeze. You're welcome. Okay, so when I put up these shelves, I wanted them to hold things that really meant a lot on my journey. And cool, right? Great. When I put them up, there were these like really obnoxious silver shiny, and when I had my lights on, the shine of that silver just like sparkled back, and it was really obnoxious. And I put these shelves up probably I don't know, 3 months ago, maybe not that long, maybe 2 months ago, maybe. And I had always wanted to paint the screws matte black so that they didn't like glare, sparkle, all the things, right? So it all just looked like one piece. And I would keep seeing that, and I'd keep seeing it in videos when I post it, and I just like would never get around to it. And yesterday I finally like felt the energy to get those painted. And it took me less than a minute, not even a minute. Probably the easiest. I had the paint, like it had been in my office. All I needed was a Q-tip, like dab a little bit of paint here and there, get it done. And for whatever reason, I was just avoiding the completion of this project. And I think for me, it's this. I'm still not great at giving myself the fullness of like the worth of a project, or like loving myself fully and seeing it all to fruition, right? Like completing the whole thing and believing that I'm deserving of a space so beautiful, believing that I'm deserving of the completion of everything that I envision, right? And this is what I want to start planting in you. It's okay if you need to love yourself slowly. In fact, I would recommend the slow love and burn as you're advancing your practice of self-love. It's okay. You don't have to be great at it. You don't have to do it. If we are doing it in like excessive, almost binge-worthy ways of like, ooh, I'm going to do a spa day, and I'm going to read a book today, and I'm going to listen to my favorite podcast, and I'm going to play my favorite music. It's almost as if we're acting out of scarcity towards our self-love, right? And so I want you to take it slow and understand that self-love isn't just spa day, isn't just doing a mask, right? It's expansive beyond that. So it might be like completing your house chores. And so you have a clean, energetic space to work in, and you can kind of clear your head and thought and tasks, right? And it seems like, right, cleaning your house is the opposite of self-love, but in fact it's the very existence and kind of the base in which you can build all the other things from. And so for me, it's like it's okay to take your time getting there. Right? We are not a well-practiced being in this world of self-love, self-improvement, like self-worth. It's hard. And even if it looks like maybe you create one day where you just self-love yourself, I want you to start inserting that into every day. And maybe you do have one day and that completely refreshes you. But I would go ahead and want to push you today to start adopting little things every day that look like self-love for you, so that we don't get into this scarcity mode where we have to do it all at once and we need more. Like if you feel like you need an entire day of self-love, right? Yikes. And so start to just add little sprinkles of it. Sprinkles and see where you get. And you don't have to do it all at once. Like with my office, I wanted this for myself, but I wouldn't allow myself to bring it to completion. Not that it was hard, just that like, do I even think that I'm worthy of that? Do I even think that I'm worthy of having this display that I dreamt up in my head? Do I even think that I'm worthy of having an office that's beautiful and expansive and like has just beautiful good things that inspire more work from me? Do I even think that I have worth to want that for myself? You know? And this doesn't just go for yourself in your own work. I want you to also think about what you're expecting from the people around you. Right? And as we start to shift into sort of this cosmic, as I was explaining it to my sister last night, like, honestly, I feel like I'm just the Grinch, right? And like, I'm having these moments of realization that I can't not love now. Like that isn't a second thought. That's the first thought of. And for me, it's kind of like a two filter system where I still filter into that old mindset and then have to filter it into this new one, right? Where it's love first. But I think this is how I would encourage that filter. And it goes the same with self-love. And this is how you should be thinking about yourself and the people around you. Don't make that expectation so heavy that it further weights the work, right? And so when you're thinking about how you apply that to self-love, if the expectation is that you love yourself all the time and you're never wrong and you never have bad conversations with yourself, bad thoughts about yourself, that's like a really heavy and high expectation to add on to the depths of self-love, right? And so go ahead and give yourself a break there. Be okay with not being great at it. Be okay with going back and forth as you continue this work. This is not perfect work. And so, right, when we start to transcend that to other people, what does that look like? Well, for me, when I first started in this work, and I would say the biggest step that we took was this acknowledgement that we didn't want to be owned by material things. Okay? And when we didn't, that meant that we were thinking and looking a lot different from a lot of the people around us. And where I think it's normal human thought, belief, and like existence to sort of denounce anyone who looks different and try to bring everybody on your side or on your team. Like, hey, we're going to be team non-material. Who's coming with us? This is the way, right? This is the only way to live. And if you don't live this way, then we're not talking anymore. Goodbye. And I think about how heavy those expectations were for other people, especially because not everybody's going to be on that same path. Not everybody's going to come to that same realization, and that's okay. We don't have to agree on everything. I know that's a very novel concept, but it's okay. It's okay for people to have different beliefs and to be in different spaces. And I want us all to start working in this space, not only with our self love, but also with the love of others. Let's all start working in this space of not adding to the weight of the work that they are already doing. And for me, material things don't matter to me, but that doesn't mean that they don't matter to someone else. And I think about how deeply important those things were to me early on in this work because, not much else made me happy. And those things made me so happy. And they were so very important for me to continue working, for me to continue understanding, how to keep moving forward, because at least having that thing have ownership of me gave me a reason to keep moving. Even though it wasn't a great motivator for me, it at least kept moving me forward in a direction. And I don't know that if I didn't have those things that I wouldn't have stopped moving altogether, right? And now we're in a different place with how we operate with things. But had I not had those motivators, I don't know that I ever would have been happy early on. And everyone deserves happiness. And so even if that path to happiness looks drastically different from where you are, let's start to remove the expectation from the people in our lives, right? Because that expectation really only weighs them down further in the work. And when I do this podcast, I always start with this idea that anyone who, and before I publish and put this out, that's sort of like my table blessing over the food. That it will find the ears of people who are ready to receive this. And so if you're here receiving this and you're like, you may not be ready. But for everyone else who's in this place, I know that you're here because you're ready. You're ready to receive this, or you're ready to take this in and maybe not fully receive it and adopt it and implement it today. But maybe this is useful somewhere else in your life and you're supposed to be here for a reason. And this is like a back pocket knowledge today. But really lowering the expectation for yourself, lowering the expectation for the people that you love, because the people you love are just the people you love. And that means that's full of the full brim of emotions, whether that's disappointment or happiness or excitement. And I want you to really see if you can stay up in this place and start applying that filter that even though this isn't where you are, not right for you to plant that expectation. And I know a good majority of my podcast episodes were planting that expectation. And I feel bad for the weight that maybe put on people who were not ready to receive that. And I haven't always been in this mental place where I understand the repercussions of what I'm putting out and all of the mental spaces that I've been in. But you know what? Honestly, now looking back at where this work has come from, at where we started and where we are now, I think it's a really beautiful, full piece of work, and if you go back to the first episodes and then you come here, my biggest hope is that you see and feel the growth that has happened. that you can begin to understand how vulnerable and unknowledgeable I showed up, but just like showing up without an answer to any questions, and yet thinking that I had the answer to all the questions at that point. And that's like the funniest, most ironic point of all of this work. And so, I can't feel bad about that, because it is just the involvement of anyone showing up to do any work. And this is the honest attempt at rescuing myself from a life that was fine, and from a life that really required no rescuing. And I think when you show up and you just start recording and not knowing where you're going to get, obviously there's going to be a misunderstanding and a kind of misalignment as you go through it. But true to what we set out to do here, it was just in the pursuit of making me, essentially, of making of the person that I could see in my dreams, but I wouldn't allow myself to play out in real life, right? Like, I could see it clear as day, but I wasn't willing to acknowledge that that was meant for me, that I deserved that life, that I was worthy of becoming that person. And over time, your job isn't really to know exactly how that's going to play out or exactly what happens. Your job is just to continue moving forward with that intention, right? And continuing to acknowledge the beauty of that work, of the work and how it happens over time, of the beauty of yourself as you grow and evolve into who you're meant to be, and for me, everything I had done up into this podcast and even into this podcast, part of the work really was ego-driven and basically at the feet of someone else, for someone else's vision of what my life was going to look like. And I really had never put myself front and center there. And so when you start to act in a way that looks more aligned for you, when you start to just decide that you want to live life on your own terms and that you're going to make that happen, it changes the game. And you are officially putting yourself on the table. And for some of you, it may be the first time that you've ever done that. And so grant yourself grace and grant all the people around you just as much grace. Because again, if you're changing your energy, their reaction may be to run and hide, and not run and hide because they don't love what you're doing. Run and hide because their energy doesn't quite match yet. And that's okay. It's okay. Don't add to the weight of that, because a lot of times they're retreating, not running from you, retreating to go back and figure out how to increase their own energy to match you. And so when we come back and we add that expectation or that hate, kind of, right, we start to hurt their development and, in fact, hurt our own energetic alignment with where we're trying to go. And so continue to give yourself space and grace as you work into the self-love space, because it is not easy. In fact, self-love is actually the hardest thing that any of us will probably ever do. And continue to grant yourself grace, and don't add to the weight of others' work or to the weight of your own work as you advance forward. Keep loving yourself. Keep granting yourself grace. This is not a great race, my friends. This is your life, right? Take time as you figure out what evolvement looks like for you, and love yourself there, not hate. That only decreases the energetic vibration. As always, you're smart, you're strong, you're beautiful. What are you going to do? Change the world.